Good to see you, Lisa.
Oh my God, it's so wonderful to see you, brother.
So excited for our conversation today.
Yeah, just our time together.
Yes, absolutely. And it's always fun to have you. So this podcast, not this particular podcast, but the first time I ever did a podcast, the first ever episode was actually where I drove to your house in, I think, Orange County or somewhere
Yes,
you
yeah,
were.
Laguna
in
Hills.
Laguna, yes, somewhere. And we shot at your house,
Yes.
literally with like one light or something. You had some great paintings in there, and it was the first ever. And I still remember that episode. It was so great, and I want to use this episode, this opportunity, to continue that conversation.
I would love
and
that.
take it even further, because ever since then, that's probably been like 2, 3, 4 years. I have no idea.
was a
It's
while
been a
ago.
while ago.
It was a while
It's been
ago.
a while ago. Where
That might have even been 5, 6 years ago.
it's very possible.
Yes.
Very possible. Because in the middle, I stopped doing all of it, and then I restarted to a completely different version of this, and so on and so forth. But what I learned from that episode, and after that, we've, of course, connected again, and I've learned a lot from you in just how to be more present in front of the camera, how to really present, how to speak, so on and so forth. And I'm looking forward to bringing all that learning to everybody that's listening in today.
Yeah, and watching both of our evolutions. But you are this beautiful combination of brilliant at what you do brilliantly, and then this open-ended learner. And I believe that that's probably our attraction to each other. We both are the same way. We own what we know, and we're open to learn so much more. So it's neat coming back to check in and what have we learned? Where have we grown?
What I love bringing now to my group of people, of coaches and educators and trainers, which is the audience for this particular podcast, this particular conversation, is that as media has evolved, social
Yes.
media
Yes.
and even any kind of virtual media, Zoom calls, whatever it is, being a good presenter has become more and more important.
Yes.
Because a lot of the content often now, and who knows how it's going to unravel in the future, but is also AI driven and all of that. So it gets a
Right.
little bit more complicated, and it becomes really mostly about being able to really speak your
Yes.
truth, being a
Yes.
personality that you already are.
Yes.
And I've seen nobody else do it better than you. So if you were to just kick off this conversation, just to kick it off, what's your message, or how would you frame somebody who is kind of looking at us right now, looking at you right now and going, oof, that's Lisa, she could do it. What about me?
Yeah. Number one of the biggest myths that we have bought into for years is you have to be born an impactful speaker. And if you're not born an impactful speaker, you just will never have it. Watch the impactful speakers and, oh, well, do your best to be average. That's a myth. Let me reframe that. I believe until recently it could have been considered the truth, because there was no body of work that taught you how to be impactful. So you either had it or didn't. And now, that's not the truth anymore. Much to your own words, we've evolved, and how we learn and what we do have evolved. Media and information is so available that I just don't believe. I could be wrong, but I'm gonna bet my money on. I don't believe you'll ever be wowed, or you'll ever wow anybody because of your information. Because information is readily available, whether it be with Siri or with Amazon or with AI. It's just available. Matter of fact, you can repurpose everybody's information. It's going to be your unique delivery, your unique delivery of the information, only trumped by your unique story. You can repurpose all the information on the planet, but no one has your unique story. So I believe if you want to know how to stand out, learn how to tell your story. Learn how to deliver content. You don't have to want to be a speaker. I tell people, please, there's a ton of stage speakers. You don't have to want to be a stage speaker. But if you want to deliver impact, if you want to be memorable, and God knows if you want to be unforgettable in whatever you're talking about, learn how to speak powerfully. Learn how to speak and have impact. Learn how to tell your USM, your unique soul message. Doesn't mean it needs to be soulful or spiritual. It can be analytical, and it can be math and numbers. But it comes out in such a way that only you can deliver it. Those core techniques, Ajit, can be taught to anybody now. And that's what I love about the game is changing. And on many platforms, remember years ago when YouTube first became popular and Justin Bieber came out, and all of a sudden Justin Bieber can become popular without having an agent or without whatever that traditional journey was. I know the record industry was like, oh my God, what's about to happen? The playing field has changed. The playing field for impact and influence has changed as well because of social media and the platforms in media. And in order to be a standout, learn how to speak, learn how to tell your story. And what I'm excited about is now there's a science to it, meaning there are techniques. And if you learn the techniques, you actually can become more impactful. That didn't exist 15 years ago. You either was a Tony Robbins, a Les Brown, or not.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. And I love that how you also teach specifically is you don't go here, become Lisa. This is the Lisa model. You say, no, here you have a unique soul message, like you call it. And you show people how to really deliver that message in their own unique way.
Yeah.
How does even somebody find what their message might be? If somebody's kind of like going, all right, I'm a coach. That's all I do. I'm a life coach. I help people change their lives.
Yes.
But I don't, how do I know? What am I looking for to find my soul message?
You already found it. If you're a life coach, your message is about the transformation of life. Now, how do you talk about it? Yeah. That's the question. But if you are already in the business of helping people touch the best version of themselves, that's your jam. Like, don't try to change and be so unique that you step out of what your jam is. Because even if someone else is doing it, I used to think, man, nobody wants to hear me. They got a Iyanla Vanzant. They got Oprah Winfrey. This is back in the day. I'm aging myself. But that was my story. They got Tony Robbins. They got Les Brown. No one wants to hear me. Then I realized, wait a minute. I can talk about the same thing in my unique way. When I figured that out, that I can stand next to Jack Canfield, and as long as I didn't try to do Jack Canfield, as long as I was true to Lisa Nichols. So if you're a coach, what are you coaching on? What are you passionate about? What do you love? What do you do? Because that thing, let's dive deeper into that. Let's unpack that. Let's see if we plant a seed over there. What stories do you have? Here are the things. I'm going to give you, write this down if you're listening. What story do you have? Multiple stories. And oh, by the way, your life isn't a story. Most people can't discover their story because they're trying to put too much in the story. The story is not the whole journey. The story is a moment in time that you had to overcome something. And you're going to have multiple moments, and all you need to do is unpack those moments, and you have story after story after story. Now, I'm going to say unpack those moments as if it's fast, but it's not fast. You know, you've been a student of the process. You really want to curate that incident. And for you, the incident will be, I'm talking to the coach who's saying, what about my story? It's a time when you didn't have the thing that you're working to help other people have now. We're all wounded healers. To me, the best person to help me climb through something is someone who's been through something. And so it's not the expert that's on the mountaintop that's never had an issue. They're not qualified to teach me. They're not qualified to coach me because I've been through a lot. So the more you've navigated through, the better qualified you are to help someone else navigate through. Now, what you need to do is unpack the stories and the times that you were navigating through things. Most coaches and most speakers don't talk enough about that because they think that it compromises their expertise. So you got to live in the duality of knowing what you know while sharing what you've been through.
That's so beautifully said. And that is one of the biggest struggles that I had, and you helped me resolve it. And I hear this happen again and again, is because people think they have this one big story that they need to tell. Everybody thinks that. It's like, well, you know, my life story. And my life story is big. It takes time to really tell your life story if you really think of the whole story.
Right.
And that tends to be the case because people go, but everything that happened, like for then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, and then this happened, that's how I really realized that I want to be a life coach. But what I learned from you, rightly, that you kind of unpacked here a little bit, is that yes, all of that happened, but if you try and tell all of that, you've kind of lost the audience a little bit because they have to kind of be on this long journey with you versus that moment in time where you have, or at least that's my understanding of it, and correct me if it is wrong, but there's a moment in time where you made the decision, and that moment in time is the story.
That moment in time, it gives me a picture of your character. I just need an incident. I need, and I shared this with many of your audience, that moment when I went to the ATM and I only had $11.42 in, so I couldn't get $20 out, so I couldn't buy the Pampers. So I had to wrap Jelani in a towel for 2 days. And on the second day, I said, enough is enough. Jelani, mommy will never be this broke or broken again. And I began to start a journey to transform Lisa. And in that transformation, I became excited about transforming anybody else that might be interested. You see, I just did an incident there. It was just a day. It was a summer day. It was about March. I remember the day. And when you're telling a great story, you know the time of the year it was. You have details. That's just a moment. And that moment defined that I was a determined woman. Once you do that, now you have multiple stories. You don't ever want to be a one-hit wonder. You don't want to be one and done. I have about 16 stories that I go to. There's 16 incidents. As a curator of content, as an educator, as an influencer, as a content provider, as an expert, every time you're teaching something, you want to anchor your audience in something that they can relate to. Take them from their head to their heart and then back to their head again. That's how you keep their attention. People will respect you if you keep them in their head. They'll remember you if you take them to their heart. And in this day and age, we're overstimulated. We live overstimulated. So if you just intellectualize me, if you just tell me something that I know, I'm going to get bored. If you just give me heart stuff and I'm not learning, you're just entertaining. If you dance between my head and my heart, now you've earned my respect and you've earned my loyalty. And that's what we want. That's what makes you unforgettable. In order to do that, you have to give me pieces of myself in your story. That's a technique called scooping. So, and you've learned this when you're telling a story, you tell it and you tell it in such a way that you don't use all the specificities of just your story. You use things like, I was sick and tired of being tired. I was tired of trying to figure out my greatness. I was tired of wondering who I could become. I wanted to touch the woman that I could become. I wanted to see her. Now, if the audience is listening, they can decide, yeah, I feel that way too. You know, there's a story that I talk about writing a check to myself. And I wrote in the memo line, funding my dream. I wasn't clear what the dream was, but I was clear that I was worthy of whatever it was. I was worthy of that investment. So I wrote the first check to myself, $110. And Ajit, I was so afraid when I wrote that first check because I wondered what bill wasn't going to be paid. And I realized that I was more committed to paying Peter and Paul the bills than I was to paying Lisa. I was more committed to being dutiful to someone else than I was committed to being dutiful and responsible to Lisa. Just in that statement, I scoop people because most people in our industry, they've mastered putting other people in front of them.
Absolutely, yeah. How does one identify, like clearly you know the point you're about to make. Clearly, you know your story, you know the point you're about to make. Do you pick the story first or do you pick the point first?
That's a great question. And can I just tell you that your questions just show your progress? Because before it was, how do I do it and not get stuck in the emotion? Because the emotion still made you uncomfortable. Now that you've danced in the emotion, so number one, know that you can be in your intellect and touch your emotion and let your emotion become available to your audience and then go back to your intellect. That's number one, to know that. So what I do is I begin with the end in mind, and I recommend, if you're listening to this podcast, that you do the same because it's worked for many, many years. Begin with the end in mind. Ask these 3 questions. And allow these 3 questions to curate how you develop your content. Number one, and this information can come from your host if someone's hosting you and you're a guest speaker, or it can come from you if it's your podcast or your event. And question number one is, how do I want my audience to feel when I'm finished? What do I want them to think when I'm finished? And what action do I want them to take when I'm finished? The answer to those three questions helps to curate all the content. Most people develop their content forward as opposed to reverse engineering and creating the outcome and then reverse engineering the conversation and the stories to fit that outcome. So based on that outcome, based on the answer to those three questions, I first pick my stories. I always, even when I speak for you, I pick my stories first, and then I curate my content around the stories. Why? Because the stories are going to be the part that they most grab a hold to. They're going to take pictures of the slides. They're going to take notes, but the stories are going to anchor them into this was for me. So I start with my stories. I've been doing that for 27 years. I start with my story. And then around my stories, I build, and I don't try to go past, for the most part, when I'm doing a 20-minute or a 40-minute keynote, even an hour, I won't try to go past 3 points. Because if I try to go past 3 points, I'll shrink the story, I'll shrink the intro, you don't realize how much of a message outside of content is important for your audience. So if I curated a keynote, and let's just say it's 20 minutes, and it could be on video. It could be my own keynote hosted by just me. I'm going live for 20 minutes. And it could be a keynote on your stage, 20 minutes. I would curate them the exact same way. Whether I'm doing it just on a live stream, or whether I'm doing it on a podcast, or whether I'm doing it on stage, same way. Number one is a welcome. Make people feel seen. You got one job when you open up. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Stephen Covey. How do I let my audience know that I see them? That's your first question. You want to know, how can I let my audience know that I see you? You can do it several different ways. One, you come in and you pay homage and acknowledgement. I'm so grateful that you're here. You can spend your time anywhere, and you've decided to spend it with me. My goal is that the next 20 minutes or 40 or an hour, whatever your time is, I make it worth your while. Not I hope, my intention, my goal. So pay homage, whatever way that looks like, or start with humor, something that gets them laughing, releases endorphins. Laughter in comedy is generous, right? People are grateful for laughter. So it could be comedy. It could be reflection. Oh my God, you look amazing. I wish you could see what I see when I look at you. So an acknowledgement if it's to a live audience. So that's your welcome. Let people feel seen. And then I go right into my story, right into my incident, right into that moment, so that they know why I qualify to be in front of them. Now remember, well, most people may not know, when you tell a story, there's 3 parts, right? There's the big you, and the big you is important because it builds your credibility. But you have to do the big you in such a way that it honors your humility, or else you won't do a big enough you. Like you're very humble, like you're super humble, you're super gracious. There's no way you would do a big enough you if we didn't design that intro to be the way the intro is. And that intro is, I'm blown away. I'm blown away that my company has generated $100 million in revenue. I'm blown away that I have 8 bestsellers. I'm blown away that I've been on every national media that exists. I'm blown away. Notice that intro, or what people may know about me is. And then there's a second part. That's the big you. The second part is because what most people don't know is. And then that's that moment in time that was an all-time low. You want to show it. You want to give it a date, give it a moment, and you unpack it. And you show me versus tell me. I was nervous. I was afraid. I felt lost. And you unpack that moment in time, and then you come out. I told you it was 3 parts to the valley. You know this very well. The big you, the low point. Then the other side is, and this is why I do what I do. The reason why I teach people how to play their biggest game is because I needed to learn how to play mine first. The reason why I'm committed to help as many transformations occur as possible is because I know that transformation can change lives. Now that's your why. So big you, low point, and then your why. That's the front end of your message. And it should only be 3 minutes. All of that should be 3 minutes. If you stretch to 5, you're really pushing it, but you can go to 5. And then the next part after that are, what are the points you want to teach me? And then follow that is, how do you inspire me? And inspiration comes from a story. Inspiration comes from poems. Inspiration comes from, my grandmother told me, I love to do my grandmother stories. And then there's a close. No matter where you are, Ajit, you can do that layout. And now I find that people who are going on big stages and small stages, they just want to know, how do I put it all together? And once you have a framework, you don't have to make it up. And once you don't have to make it up, you don't have to be nervous. And once you don't have to be nervous, you get to show up and show your genius more. And I just believe that there's so many people who don't want to die with their genius in their belly.
Yeah, that's true. And especially people in this community, because they feel they have so much to give, their hearts are so full, and often they don't get to express it for many different reasons. One of the key points that I'm taking away from this, Lisa, that I feel we all struggle with, newer speakers, of course not you, is that we like to pack in. We like to pack in a lot.
Yes.
And I see myself doing this even after I've trained with you, and I practice everything that I've learned, or as much as possible. But we tend to go, oh, that's not enough. Yeah, that's not. How do you work with that conflict? And I say this not only for myself. I know a lot of our coaches struggle with the same things. Like, I have 60 minutes. I have 63 slides.
Yes.
How do I fit that in?
Yes.
And I know that you will not fit it in.
Yes.
You'll run over
I know
time.
what will happen. It won't happen. Yeah. So,
or you'll just stay in the head all the time.
Or you're rushing.
Yeah.
And now I, the audience, feel robbed of whatever it is you didn't get to say.
Yeah.
And then please don't flash by 15 slides, because now I want to know what's in those slides. Yeah. So I'm going to tell you a very analytical part that's just basic math. Divide the number of slides you have by the number of minutes you have. And is that realistic? If it's not realistic, don't try to make it realistic. If you know I get 32 seconds per slide, well, we both know that that's not going to happen, and it's not fair. And you're only teaching a fast learner. You're not teaching a thorough learner. I'm a thorough learner. And by the way, I struggled with this for years. I had way too much content. But part of it, Ajit, is, are you still confident that you're worthy of giving this information out? Because for me, I was trying to overgive because I wanted you to know that I was valuable. I was still trying to prove that I was enough. I was still proving to myself that I was worthy of being a teacher of others. So a part of that's our own personal development. And you know me, I'm big in personal development. That a huge part of, you have a USM, you have a unique soul message that's yours to deliver. And it might look and feel like someone else's, but it doesn't belong to anyone else but you. A part of releasing that message, that's to come to you. And oh, by the way, the message will evolve over the years. So the message you had 6 years ago, 10 years ago, 12 years ago when we first met, your message has evolved. I could see it, right? It will evolve as you evolve. That message requires you to give it permission to come out. And most times it includes some vulnerability. It includes some dysfunction. It includes some messiness. It includes you having to figure out how to shape the chaos that you had to navigate through. And so a major part of you releasing your unique soul message is, please don't always only be the coach. What I love about you, what I love about Vision, what I love about so many of our friends is that you're playing a big game. And yet we still sit at each other's feet. And we go, no, I might be good at that. But you are the master at this, and I want to learn how to be a better version of this. And so please know that you don't arrive anywhere. I just paid a strong 6 figures for a very few number of hours to sit with someone and coach. I was comfortable with that because they're the best at that for me. I'm good at it, but they're amazing at it. And I want to learn what I don't know. And so that's part of it, is to give yourself permission to still be in the learning while you call yourself a coach. Watch out. Some titles close a door that you don't want to close. And then the other part is to recognize the gift to your audience is not just listening to you. The gift to your audience is hearing what your content brings up in themselves. So you got to give them space for that. I've learned in the last probably 10 years, what I really like to do is offer up a little bit of content and then stir the pot for you to think, to come up with your own. See what came up, and then ask the room, ask the space, even online, what came up for you? Because the greatest gift you can give to someone is the gift of them turning inward to themselves to see what they're feeling, not looking at you. And so often, I've coached a lot of coaches. We love to listen to ourselves. We love the intellect we have. But what I really want to invite you to fall madly in love with is what comes out of them when you've given it to them, and then ask them to show up in such a way that whatever seed you planted brings up some growth, brings up a harvest. What is the harvest? Become in love with the harvest that's grown from the seeds you plant, more than you're in love with planting seeds.
So true, so true. And I think what I'm learning here, and I'm hoping that's what people are taking away from it, is find how the message is fine. The message that you're communicating is fine, but if it doesn't land, then there's no point communicating the
or
message.
take root,
Yeah.
or have time to take root,
Yeah.
or you give me the instructions of how to water it.
Yeah.
People often say, Lisa, how'd you do? I say, I don't know how I did. I just finished. Let's see what happens in their lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They go, oh, I don't know. I enunciated all my words well, but right now we don't know. Like, that's a high level of accountability, though. Yeah. I just become fixated on planting seeds, giving them some water, giving them some sun, and sticking around to see what grows. And then tell the story of what grew. Don't tell the story of the seed you planted. Times have changed. Yeah. It wasn't like that 20 years ago, brother. 20 years ago, we just talked about what we said. Now, I want evidence. What did it do? That's a high level. Oh, you'll play so big. You'll never stop learning. You want to know? Give me feedback. How did it work? What'd you do? Did it not work? That's transformation. By the way, road less traveled. Information is the crowded road. Motivation has a lot of people on it. Inspiration has a few less. But transformation is pretty spacious because it requires time. And most people are playing the first quarter. Yep. And I say play the fourth quarter. Start the game looking for the fourth quarter. And so, but you know me, I'm intense about if you are holding a microphone, or if you have an audience, or if you've been given a coaching title, there's a great calling on your life. And there's a great responsibility that comes with that. And it doesn't circle around monetary. To me, when you are committed to making great impact, then you seek great impact, great income only follows great impact. Great income never comes first. Seek first to have great impact. And then, as a byproduct, and I'm not saying don't be business oriented. I'm a businesswoman. I took my company public. That was all about business. But my goal has always been first, great impact. And then how do I create great income so that I can make even more great impact? And so make sure your sources are right as well.
Like I mentioned, once you have figured out, let's say if there's a coach who says, all right, fine, I've figured out, or somewhat figured out, what is the 2 or 3 messages that I want to communicate to the world, would you recommend at this point for them to find points in time for their stories? Or would you say start with your general story, so at least you have something as a timeline to work with? How the curious question is, how does one find stories related to the point? Yeah. How do I discover what's the story to pick? Because life's so big, you know?
So the story doesn't have to be related to your teaching point. The story needs to be related to your right fit client. There's stories you'll never tell because they have no relevance to this person. Remember, everything.
I think that's a really important point. I think people don't realize that.
Yeah, they don't realize that. It's like, oh, I love talking about this. Who cares? Who cares? Do they need to hear it?
Yeah.
It's a whole different approach. It's begin with the end in mind. How can I help you to be the best version human that you want to be? What story helps to make that happen? What story helps you to see that you're not alone? What story helps you to see that you can get knocked down 1,000 times, just get up 999?
Yeah.
What story? So now you're sourcing the story from a different viewpoint. Not how does it attach to my content, which most people do. Not how does it lead into my point. Not how does it make me popular. Not how does it make me go viral. Not how does it make me a lot of money. How does it make the best impact in your life? Every single story that I tell it from a point of what person needs to hear this? Oh, the person who's been broken. Okay, that's a story for them. What person needs to hear Tonka Tough? Tonka Tough is for someone who's been knocked down 100 times and they just need to get up, and they don't get up fast, they get up slow. What person needs to hear the story of losing faith in themselves and regaining faith and turning their crawl back into a walk and their walk back into a run and their run into a soar? Oh, they need to hear the mirror exercise of when I was leaving an abusive relationship. I don't necessarily wake up in the morning wanting to tell you that I was in an abusive relationship. I've never woke up one morning excited about the story that was required for me to tell. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's one story in my whole library that I go, ooh, I love that story. Because in order for a story to be truly impactful, a story needs to show struggle, it needs to show turmoil, and it needs to have tension so that it can have triumph. Every one of us wants the hero's journey. That's why we watch Rocky 1, Rocky 3, Rocky 5. Do you believe there are 9 Rockies? Rocky 9, yeah. And then Creed 1, yeah. Creed 2, Creed 3, yeah. Right? We all know there's going to be a fight. Yeah. And we all know that the person that we're rooting for is going to have a hard time. We all know that. Yeah. But because we're living the hero's journey, we want to watch a hero's journey. And so when you truly want to impact someone's heart, you got to choose the story that's going to show the journey, expose the turmoil, the tension, the tragedy, and the journey to triumph. That's how you choose it. And then you just pick the area and you base that on your right fit client. This is the business part now. Mm-hmm. Who's my right fit client? Here's the next question. What's their pain point and what's their problem? Now, that's not one answer. They got a list. They normally got about 6 problems, 6 pain points. Next question, what's their desire? What's their greatest dream? There's only about 3 of those, honestly. It's not as long. Turmoil and pain points are always longer. We're pain point averse. We are more motivated to avoid pain than we are to achieve desires, which is why if you're marketing and you only market about have this, have that, have this, you'll get people. But if you say, if you're tired of this and you want this, if you've tried this and it didn't work and then you want this, if you give me that combination, you'll get more attention. Marketing 101 for me, it took me only 10 years to learn that. Same thing has to happen in your story. Your story has to be, I was living my best life at one time. I had already earned, $20 million in business, and I look up and I'm in an emotionally abusive relationship. How did I get here? And then it turns physically abusive. How did I get here? I'm a motivational speaker. I motivate people to live their dreams. How is it that I'm afraid to go home? I don't know if you've ever wondered. You looked up one day and said, how did I get here? I took all the right steps. I did all the right things. I don't deserve this story. Even tears come to my eyes right now telling it. So part of it is you have to give yourself permission to go touch a place again. Yeah. And to trust that you've grown enough to bring yourself out. Now, here's what I know. Most people won't tell a story that they're still afraid of feeling the feelings connected to it. And so that's where I say, and you know me as a coach, I'm always going to do personal development with you. If we're going to help you get bigger in your impact and your messaging, then let's go make sure that we've taken care of you and that you have the courage to tell the story of the mess and the tragedy and the tension and the turmoil while you sit on stage. That you touch that. Give me the gift of touching your humanity in front of me, because then my humanity becomes okay.
I think that's what makes you such a inspiring transformational speaker, is because you're willing to go where most won't go, and that's why it's you're such a memorable speaker, and again and again and again that is reminded of every time you come on a podcast, you get on the stage, is because while a lot of us are in personal development, a lot of us are not, for lack of a better term, fearless enough to be able to go where one needs to go. And I love the part where you said, I don't wake up in the morning saying I'm going to tell that story, because it's still a hard place to go. And who wants to do that? You know, it's like, I mean, you want to do that, but who wants to do that?
I want the other side of it.
Yeah.
That's why I begin with the end in mind. Yeah. I want you to feel so free, so okay with that ugly journey, if it was ugly, that uncomfortable. I want you to know that my past does not equal my future. My past is a setup for my future, and it's my birthright to have it. How do I do that? What story do I need to tell to do that? You don't need 63 slides to get that. Give me a great story in 6.
Yeah.
And then give me the spaciousness to catch my breath. And I don't expect anyone listening to us to get it all at one time. I never expected you to get it one time. I didn't get it at one time. This was layers. My goal in this season of my life is to shorten the time that it takes you to get it. That it doesn't take you as long as it took me. It doesn't take them as long as it may have taken you. That's why we're here. We're here to save people time, save them stress, maybe save them some money, save them some doubt. We're here to help people turn decades into days, to turn, months into weeks, ideally. Nothing is instant but coffee. And ISO tea. Yeah. But nothing is instant. However, our job is to give people the whole truth. Mm-hmm. And the whole truth is humans want to meet humans, and humans want to touch humanity. And your biggest work as a coach is going to be to make your humanity accessible and help curate your humanity so that it's eloquent, and nurture your humanity so that it comes out effortlessly, and then take care of your humanity so that it financially prospers. And when you begin to do that, then all of a sudden everyone wants a piece of your humanity. I'm a living product of that. I was on Oprah before I had a PR plan. I was on Larry King before I had a strategy. Like everywhere I went, it was before I had the strategy to get there. And I look back and I kept asking the question, Ajit, how did I do that? What happened? I'm not the smartest cookie in the cookie jar. I'm okay with that. My highest grade in school was a C+. I wasn't amongst the A students or the advanced placement students. I got kicked out of college because I couldn't afford to stay. I'm diagnosed at 25 as functionally dyslexic. I never stopped. People think, oh, you're not dyslexic anymore. No, I'm still dyslexic. I just learned how to navigate with it. It's my superpower. It's not my disease. It's not my diagnosis. It's my superpower. I use it to my benefit. I learn thoroughly and I teach thoroughly. But I'm not that person that most people would say should have been the one that I am today. I'm not the person that should have done $100 million in business and have 8 bestsellers and traveled the world. I don't fit the profile, other than I let my humanity out again and again. I trusted my truth. I learned how to curate my truth in a short period of time, in a soundbite, and serve it. I learned how to open up my truth enough so that other people can see their truth in my truth. If you ask me what was a superpower 27 years ago, that was an unconscious competence. I can't even tell you I knew what I was doing. I can't tell you that I knew what was happening on Oprah when she stopped talking and said, wow, Lisa. And I looked at Oprah and I said, did she just say, wow, Lisa? Like I stealed her. And then within 72 hours, I got 9,782 emails. And my email wasn't even Lisa Nichols. It wasn't easy. I look back and I go, what was it? I want to know so I could share it. It was, I let my humanity out. And then I opened it up. And people saw their humanity and my humanity. And then I eloquently put it together in a story and served it fast in a soundbite. Over and over and over again. And I made her feel like and him feel like, if she can do it, I can do it. If she can do it. If you give somebody that, 27 years in and I still get emotional about it. Because I know what it feels like to be hopeless. And you can only value hope and giving someone the gift of hope if you were hopeless, even for a minute, Ajit. You don't have to be long. My prayer is that every person listening to our voice can find their this moment. And if I can impart anything, it's if an ordinary woman like me so ordinary, but every day I try to choose one extraordinary decision. It may have stretched me, made me uncomfortable. I lost friends. I scared myself a lot. Just wanting to be a little more extraordinary. And if you make enough, I believe, extraordinary single decisions, you could look up and have an extraordinary life and be considered an extraordinary being, when in truth you're an ordinary being, just making a lot of extraordinary decisions. So my tears are tears of gratitude. Because I don't forget when I only had $11.42. Like I don't forget your story of sleeping in very close quarters. I'll never forget your story, ever. I'll never forget it. And when I say yes to you, I say yes to that story. Because I love that guy. Your story is your superpower. The greatest gift you can bring to those around you is to learn how to tell your story. Because the story doesn't belong to you anymore. I have no idea where we're going with this, but I'm just...
I'm crying now.
One for me, one for you.
And I think one of the most important conversations I've had on these conversations that I get to have with really special people is often sometimes I feel that the more people I meet, the less hope I see in their eyes, not in reality, but in their eyes, and because of whatever reason, because life was hard, because society has been hard on them, culture has been hard, people around them have been hard on them, whatever it might be, but for some reason they seem to think it's not going to work out.
They're hopeless.
They've lost hope. They're hopeless. And stories, the way you share the story, the way you communicate, the way you show up on a podcast or on stage or on social media or whatever it may be, gives people the most important thing that I think anybody needs. That's hope. That some days, like I know, I could use hope.
Yeah.
Because when you're taking this road, it looks fascinating from a distance, but in the journey, as you're walking that path, and I know it's true for you, and I know it's true for most of us, and whichever way it is when you're walking that path, it is often that you walk a few steps and you go, is this something?
Yeah.
Is this anything?
Yeah.
Is it leading to something?
Yeah.
Am I anything?
Yeah.
And all of those compound to make you feel like
Yeah.
there is no hope. And at that time, just at that time, you need a conversation like this, a story like that, that tells you, no, it can be something.
2 more steps.
Just 2 more steps.
Yeah, 2 more steps. You have no idea what's around the corner. Yeah, hope is priceless. And if we can spend the rest of our lives committed to giving people hope, even if we only get half of what we thought we should do, if we all get together and do it, life can look very, very different. I am a wounded healer. And I got many titles, but my first title is a wounded healer, which means that I wanted to help someone navigate through what I had already navigated through. Whether it be just hopelessness or wonder or confusion. And I know that when I meet people now and they come up to me and they can't speak, they just start crying. I actually I'm not thrown off. I know what that means. I know what it means. It means that we walked through something together. That there was a moment when you felt like you couldn't do it, and something, for by the grace of the divine, something I said just had you take 2 more steps. Not 2,000, just 2 more. Don't worry about the other ones behind that. Just take 2 more. Then when those are done, we'll just commit to 2 more. Because we don't know what's around the corner. My grandmother used to always say, don't put a period where God put a comma. Just 2 more steps. And I don't quite know some days, Ajit, how I've done what I've done. Because I can't tell you that it was the initial strategy. There's nowhere in my original business plan that I have, she'll make $100 million. No. I just wanted to get off government's assistance. I just wanted to give Jelani a better future than his past. But somewhere along the line, I figured out, if I give you some hope, then somehow that feeds both of us. That feeding you feeds me, which is why so many people in our industry love the way it feels. We haven't figured out the business part yet. We haven't figured out how to scale it yet, how to market it yet. We don't really quite like thinking about the products and the programs. We just like the experience. When I figured out that to do more of the experience with the people, I had to do more of the business. I tricked myself into doing the business so that I can do the people, so that I can connect with more. Because every time I would get on stage or meet someone one-on-one, I felt better. Now, it took me a while to figure out how to get paid. It took me even longer to figure out how to get paid. And don't worry about getting paid your worth, because your fee does not equal your value. Man, I wish someone had told me that earlier. My fee was just my fee. My fee was just what the market could bear. My fee was just what it was so that I can get my name out there. My fee was free for a long time because I just wanted the exposure. When I figured out that I needed to learn how to be responsible to the thing I called my business so that I can do the thing I called my ministry. To me, my ministry is wrapped in my business. For me, not everybody. But I could do the same thing for free that I do for business. And so if I do it for business, I get to do more of it. It took a while for me to trust myself that I could be a dutiful businesswoman, functionally dyslexic, sure high ADHD, certifiably unemployable. With all of that, I got fired from 5 jobs in my 20s. No one knows that unless I tell them. With all of that history, I still have the right to build a sustainable business. as a coach and as a teacher. That's your birthright. Be responsible with that. And once I got that down, and I stopped being afraid of what I didn't know, I stopped resisting what didn't feel good, and I stopped minimizing what I was good at. I stopped worrying about if I'd outshine somebody. I stopped worrying about my family and if I might have to leave them a little bit to go for this dream, because I couldn't hold on to everybody and hold on to my dream at the same time. But if I go get this dream and I actualize it, I can come back and my family's going to be there. Oh my gosh. Stop trying to convert my family and make them my students. Convert my family and make them my fans. But just let them be my cousins and my aunties and my uncles and my siblings. When I got that, when I stopped judging them for not supporting me, and I went to a community that understood where I was going and let my family be my family. If I can impart anything, is let your family be your family, and don't judge them with not supporting you because they don't get you. You don't even get you all the time. You don't understand where you're going. How could they understand it? When I got that, now that took me 12 years to get, and a lot of mental judgment of my family that they didn't deserve. So much. I would say hold yourself, tether yourself to a community of people who are 10 to 20 steps ahead of you, so that you don't have to go through the same things they went through. Yeah. Just ask the questions. What'd you go through? What would you tell your younger version of you? You know what I mean? Yeah. Anyway.
And that's all so true, and that's all some real challenges that people in our community definitely face, where they feel I have nobody coming along, they don't support me, they don't understand what I'm trying to do. Heck, they don't even understand what I have learned or what I am trying to create in my life. And yes, they won't. And that's not their job, they are your family. They are going to be what they gotta be. And beautifully put, Lisa. And I think there is so much, and I've taken, of course, a full 5-day program with you, and we've barely scratched the surface of it. It's like not even 1% of everything that you take us through as an experience.
By the way, back to what you said earlier, cramming so much, you gave me some beautiful wisdom at the end of that training that I immediately applied. You said, this was great, Lisa, but give me less and give me more time to digest what you do give me. Yeah. And I respect you. I went right back in the very next training, from that training forward. Now, I felt like I wasn't giving everyone all I should give them because I want to give them so much, but I trusted you as my student and as a leader and as an expert. And everyone in my environment and on my staff and in my community, they're grateful for the wisdom that you gave me, and grateful for the fact that it now lives as a part of my curriculum. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you very much. And I'm still practicing everything that I learned.
Yeah.
Like I'm still kind of like, I keep forgetting and have to go back to my notes and forgetting to go back to my notes.
Don't we all?
And the reason why I wanted to bring that about is, while we can talk for hours, especially you and I think we can go on for hours about
easy.
Not just speaking, but about the message, and especially what you touched on, which is so beautiful, about hope. And it's so important, I think, not only for our community, but society at large, I think. But I do want to make an invitation for anybody that is listening to this. This is probably a life's work, like in the sense, a person who is listening to this may be your life's work. This is something, if you are an impact maker, change maker, this may be the thing that you want to work most on.
Yes.
Because once you refine your ability to be able to communicate your idea, your perspective, your story in a way that is digestible. And
digestible, meaningful, impactful, unforgettable, riveting, soul-stirring.
And I want to attest to that, because ever since I did that, and did that training from this point of recording this about 2 years ago, or not 2 years ago, I've done 3 events ever since we did that training at this point. And every single time I do an event, people go, that was the best yet. And then the next one they go, that was the best yet. And this one that we just did, that was the best yet.
How were you feeling before you did the training and you would do events? Because what you told me was, they say I did good, but you still were wondering.
So I'll be real, because you were so real at this conversation. So, and it's not that it's gone completely, but after every event, I have an expectation of myself.
Yes.
And that expectation comes from, I don't know where it comes from, but it is present to me. There is a certain experience I want to have when I'm on stage, which is I want to call it certainty of that
Certainty.
I am really there, and like people can feel it 100%, and I know exactly where I'm going, which I don't always. And secondly, for whatever reason, and I surrendered to it a lot more at this event, but even at least in the last event, I want a certain, the expectation is of a certain kind of applause, that once I'm done, I will receive a certain kind of applause. And I'm not going to go into specifics of it, but every single time when I wouldn't get the same, I would feel I didn't do justice to them. I didn't do good enough. I wasn't my best, right? And what I'm surrendering more to is there's a lot of ego in there, or at least that's what's present to me now, is that I was chasing the plot not because that was any sign of my impact on them. It was more a sign of that how my ego is going to feel after.
That's powerful awareness.
So I recognize that I've not been able to fully let it go.
Yes.
I'm not going to lie about that. That's not like I feel like, oh, you know what, I don't feel it anymore.
Right.
No, literally at this event, because I have the fortune of having phenomenal speakers like you, and there were many such phenomenal speakers. And every time I would see them on stage, I was like, fuck, I'm good. I was like, what the hell are you doing? You're supposed to be the host. You're supposed to be the person that is bringing all these people together. And this is in the middle of, and I'm saying this honestly because I feel like anybody that's watching this will be in my position one day, and hopefully they can remember this, this is in the middle of receiving probably 100 thank yous a day for the impact I've made in people's lives. There are 500 plus attendees. When I go to my own parties, the only thing I do is take selfies pretty much and listen to stories. And that it is exhausting. People wonder how I can do that for hours. And in the middle of all of that, I wake up to, it's not good enough.
Not good enough.
Not good enough. And I look at, and comparison, oh my God.
Is the thief of all your joy.
Yeah. It's comparison. Like, I had to take a walk. I was like, dude, what is up with you? Like, who cares? You brought these people, and you are adding, like, you literally invited each of the speaker.
They all said yes to you.
They all said yes. You wanted them to come and impact. Why are you feeling less than? Your job is not to be the message, but the messenger.
This is such a powerful, first of all, thank you for your honesty. I feel like we're reverse interviewing now. Most people won't say that. And as a result, when you become impactful, because I have dealt with the other side of that for a long time. I come off stage and the host would say, oh, you make me feel like such a fraud. And I start feeling guilty. And so for a long time, I would shrink, especially if I saw someone who I know had said it to me before. And sometimes we can bring that shrinking in the room when we've heard it from our family. So I love that you're saying this out loud, because I think both sides are very true. Yeah. And you even said to me in an audio message, you said something like that before you took my class. I want to get a standing ovation. But then in my last audio, this was years ago, in my last audio message you left me, what I loved was there was a sense of certainty, like I feel good when I speak. Like I was so proud of your message. When you can move your own needle, you moved your own needle. I was simply the vehicle that supported you, but you moved your own needle. It speaks to every single person listening to our voice right now. You can move your own needle from nervous to comfortable, from comfortable to good, from good to great, from great to unforgettable. You can move your needle. It won't happen overnight. But you said this is probably a lot of people's life's work. I couldn't stop this work if I wanted to come through me. I tell people I started doing this work so I can get a good night's sleep, because I felt a calling on my life. I didn't understand it. And back when I started, it didn't have the structure it has now. So there was no how you make money. There was no how you do a program. I feel like I was just Braille-based business doing. So now there's more structure. But two things to remember. One, comparison is and will always be the thief of all your joy. And number two, speaking is the catalyst to every single thing that you want to do in this industry. Whether you're a stage speaker or not, speaking is what lets people know that you have value, that you are relatable. And so I'm glad that you had me. I'm glad that I could be back with you. I'm glad that you're in this journey. I think that we need an army of unicorns and gladiators and change makers and change agents right now. We need them every nationality. We need them every gender. We need them every specification. We need them from every origin, every religion. We need as many gladiators and an army of change makers now more than ever. And this industry is not too crowded. It won't be too crowded. It will take years for it to get remotely saturated. And the need far exceeds the supply right now.
Absolutely.
And so we are in a growing industry, but I want us to treat it like a growing human need that we simply said yes to serving and sign up for the cost. Sign up for the cost, because then on those days when your hope wanes, you'll say, I already said yes to this cost, because the outcome is so beautiful. It makes the cost worthwhile.
That is so true. And when you sign up for that cost and when you say yes to it, you also realize that while the journey will be difficult, while the lessons will be there, it is that one thank you means everything. That one person that walks up to you and says that was impactful, or somebody just breaks down because they don't have no words to tell you. That one feeling is, I said this to my tribe at this event where we were recording this, is I think at one point I recognized the currency that I earn by doing this work is the thank yous I get to collect. Because I get to collect a lot of them, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity that the universe has provided me. Because at this point, and that's what I meant by surrender, I feel, and sometimes I get in my head, of course, like all of us do, I guess, but most of the time I can surrender to that I do the best I can for delivering the message I'm meant to. And if it lands, it doesn't land. If it makes money, it doesn't make money. If it does something, it doesn't do something, I don't know.
And then the ROI becomes a tsunami over time. You got to plant enough seeds. So I'm a big salad person. I love salad. But it just takes so much to chop them. I'm like, my God, it just takes so long to chop them. But I go, no, on the other side is nutrition. It might take me, it takes me 20 minutes to make it, but it takes me, 6 minutes to eat it, but it's okay, all the nutrition. There's a time where you turn that around and it'll take you 6 minutes to do something, and there's 20 minutes of feedback. Or you'll step into a room at a party and you get 100 thank yous. It's like this liquid vitamin that I take now called NutriBurst. It takes me 2 seconds to consume it, but they say it's equivalent to 10 salads. I go, oh, this is my salad payback. This is all the chopping that I ever did. Now I just do one NutriBurst. So life is like that. When you put enough in, and you start getting it back, but you got to put the time in to create the tsunami that's occurring, and you got to be willing to play for the fourth quarter, is what I say. Plant the seed, water the seed, give the seed sunshine, time, energy, financial responsibility, make that happen, and then you'll look up, and you've created a forest, and you didn't see it. It was where my tears were coming from earlier. Like, you couldn't have told me it was going to be like this. I ask every person listening to my voice, looking at this podcast, you can't even imagine what it could look like in 5 or 10 years. And as a matter of fact, I don't think you're ever going to get the full view, because you might even sabotage yourself if you knew how amazing it could be. Your job is 2 steps. I don't think you knew that this could occur 15 years ago.
No.
And I know that I didn't know when we used to have breakfast 10 years ago that this could be the life, that it could get this much better. And so I'm excited for our future. I'm excited that this community exists, because it was lonely when I started. I didn't know where to find someone else doing this work. And now we're seeing each other. We're raising our hands. We're typing in chat. I'm here. Say your name. Type your name in chat. This is my name, and I'm here. I'm excited for the change that gets to occur.
Yes.
And thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you. Thank you for doing what you do, because without that training, that
Yeah.
distilling of information that
Yeah.
you have done for something that otherwise is so nuanced and so from a distance seems impossible. Once you're in the vortex with you make it possible in everybody's unique way. I do what you have taught me in my own unique way. It doesn't look anything like Lisa, but it is so much more congruent to me and honorable to my own story. So thank you for helping me with that. And I invite anybody that's listening to this and watching this to be able to engage in such education that you may have available. So I don't know when we are going to post it, what would be available.
I think one of
yeah.
the key things that I would say is a great starting point for everyone is to take a speaker assessment. To see, here are my strengths right now. All you got to do is answer questions. Don't worry about how it shows up. I took care of that. I actually did this assessment myself, because I said, what should they want to know? And so it asks you questions like, every time I speak, I feel confident about showing them my story, and you either answer yes or no, whatever. And at the end, what I love about this assessment is it tells you, here's where you're strong. Still work on that. Always work on that. Here are some of your gaps. Pay some attention here. And I'm committed to helping people make needlepoint moves. So whenever this comes out, that is a fit, because it gives you feedback. It's just, I just want feedback. We all want feedback. Healthy feedback, safe feedback. To me, that's a good place to start. Nothing, just a gift. If you want to know, what do I need to focus on? Where am I right now? Where do I start? That's a good place. And it doesn't talk about any programs. It just talk about, these are the techniques you want to focus on. I think that'll be
amazing. Yeah, that would be a fantastic starting
Absolutely,
point
I'd
for
love
everyone.
to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll link it up in the show notes. We are going to link it up below the video for you to
Perfect.
be able to take the speaker assessment. Lisa, thank you so much for taking the time
You're welcome.
and spending this time with us.
You're welcome. Thank you for making my journey on this planet not quite so lonely as a unicorn. When we find each other, I believe we should hold on to each other. And you have graciously allowed me to hold on tight to you, and you've held on tight to me. I am grateful for who you choose to be, and that I get to witness it and be inspired by it. I love you as a father, as a husband, as a change agent, as a brother.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.